Commander Tejo stared at his screen for the third time in 10 minutes. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The numbers on his monitor showed zero human communications coming from Earth. Not one single message. Not even the usual background chatter that every space station picked up from human ships, colonies, and trading posts. He rubbed his eyes and checked the time. It was his night shift aboard Harmony's Edge, the massive space station that sat between 3 different star systems. Usually this was the boring part of his job. Humans never stopped talking. Their communication networks buzzed with constant activity. Trade deals, family messages, news reports, scientific data, arguments about sports, complaints about weather on distant colonies. The humans talked about everything all the time, but now there was nothing. Tejo called up the communication logs from the past week. Monday had been normal. Tuesday showed regular traffic. Wednesday morning had the usual flow of messages. Then, at exactly 14:32 Galactic Standard Time, everything stopped. The last message was a routine shipping report from a cargo vessel near Jupiter. After that, silence. He switched to the long-range sensors. The Sol system looked normal from the outside. Ships moved in their regular patterns around Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt. The space stations around Jupiter were in their correct positions. The mining operations near Saturn showed normal heat signatures. Everything appeared to be working fine, except nobody was talking. Tejo pressed the emergency button on his control panel. A soft chime echoed through the station, and within minutes Dr. So-Min hurried into the command center. She was the station's expert on alien species, and she knew humans better than most non-humans in the galaxy. "What is the problem?" she asked, pulling up a chair next to his workstation. "Look at this," Tejo said, pointing to his screen. "When did you last receive a message from any human source?" So-Min frowned and checked her own systems. Her face went pale as she scrolled through the data. This cannot be right. Humans send thousands of messages every hour. They are the most talkative species in the galaxy. "That is what I thought too," Tejo said. "But look at the timestamps. Everything stopped 3 days ago." So-Min ran her own diagnostics on the station's communication array. All systems showed green. The equipment was working perfectly. She tried to contact the human embassy on Centauri Prime. No response. She sent a priority message to the human trading post on Kepler Station. Nothing came back. "Maybe there is a technical problem with their equipment?" So-Min suggested, but her voice showed doubt. Captain Jin Woo entered the command center, drawn by the emergency alert. He was an old soldier who had fought in the border wars and had seen strange things before, but the look on his face showed he had never seen anything like this. "Captain," Tejo said, "we have lost all contact with human space. Every single communication channel is dead." Jin Woo sat down heavily in his command chair. He had been in space for 30 years, and in all that time, humans had been a constant presence. They were everywhere, doing everything, talking to everyone. They were loud, curious, and impossible to ignore. The galaxy had gotten used to their endless energy and their need to communicate about every small detail of their lives. "Have you tried the emergency channels?" Jin Woo asked. "First thing I checked," Tejo replied. "Even their military frequencies are silent." So-Min pulled up a star map showing human territory. Red dots marked every human colony, station, and outpost within 500 light-years. All of them showed the same status, no communications. "This is not possible," she said. "Humans do not just stop talking. Even when they sleep, their automated systems send status reports every hour." Jin Woo stood up and walked to the main viewing window. Outside, the stars looked the same as always. Space seemed peaceful and normal, but he knew that somewhere out there, in the direction of Earth, something had happened to the most active species in the galaxy. "Send a priority message to Galactic Council headquarters," he ordered. "Tell them we have a situation." The message reached the Council within 6 hours. Within 12 hours, every major species in the galaxy was reporting the same thing: total communication blackout from all human sources. The Velthari, with their advanced sensor networks, confirmed that human space appeared physically normal. The crystalline Korth detected no unusual energy signatures. The gas-being ethereals found no signs of warfare or destruction. Ambassador Curie, who represented Earth at the Galactic Council, was supposed to attend the emergency session. Her empty chair at the council table sent a chill through the assembled delegates. For the first time in 300 years, No human voice spoke in the great hall where the galaxy's leaders met to discuss important matters. High Speaker Velandris of the Velthari stood before the assembly. Her people were known for their calm and logical thinking, but even she seemed worried. "Fellow delegates," she said, "we face an unprecedented situation. Humanity, our most active member species, has gone completely silent. Our long-range scans show no signs of destruction or invasion. Their ships continue normal operations within their territory, but they have stopped all external communications." The Korth delegate, a tall crystal being named Harmonics of Truth, vibrated with nervous energy. "This is most disturbing. Humans are known for their constant chatter. They comment on everything. They ask questions about everything. They share opinions about everything. For them to suddenly stop communicating suggests either a massive technical failure or something far more serious." Elder Gostel of the ancient Moradun species spoke in his deep, slow voice. "In my 1,000 years of life, I have never seen anything like this. Humans are predictable in their unpredictability. They argue, they laugh, they complain, they celebrate, but they never ever simply go quiet." The emergency session continued for 18 hours. Rescue missions were planned and canceled. Diplomatic messages were prepared and sent into the void. Scientific theories were proposed and debated, but nobody had a good explanation for what had happened to humanity. What none of them knew was that 3 days earlier, in a secret laboratory beneath the city of Seoul on Earth, Dr. Hyunsu had activated humanity's greatest achievement. The dimensional fold communication array was designed to let humans talk to each other instantly across any distance. But the first test had done something unexpected. Instead of just connecting human communication networks, it had folded space around the entire solar system. Earth and everything around it had slipped into a pocket of folded space-time, invisible and unreachable from the normal universe. Humanity had not gone silent. They had gone somewhere else entirely, and in that other place they were learning things that would change the galaxy forever. 7 months after humanity disappeared, the galaxy had started to adjust to the quiet. Trade routes that once carried human goods were redirected. The Galactic Council meetings felt strange without human representatives asking endless questions and proposing new ideas. Many species admitted privately that they missed the constant human chatter, even though they had often complained about it before. Then space itself began to shake. Captain Minho felt it first aboard his ship, which was floating in what used to be empty space near the edge of human territory. His instruments detected massive gravitational waves rolling across 3 star systems. The waves were so powerful that they bent light and made the stars flicker. "What is happening?" asked his navigation officer, a young Velthari named Serental. Before Minho could answer, reality tore open in front of them. A massive hole appeared in space, edges crackling with energy that hurt to look at directly. Through the hole, they could see something impossible. Another universe, where the laws of physics seemed to work differently. Stars moved in patterns that made no sense. Light bent in ways that should not be possible, and through that hole came a ship. But calling it a ship was like calling a hurricane a breeze. The vessel that emerged defied everything the galaxy knew about space travel. It did not have engines, but it moved. It did not have wings, but it flew. It seemed to exist in several different dimensions at the same time, flickering between solid and transparent as reality bent around its hull. The ship's design was clearly human, but transformed beyond recognition. Where human vessels had always been practical and sturdy, this craft looked like it had been built from crystallized space-time itself. Its hull shifted colors that had no names, and its very presence made the fabric of space ripple like water. Captain Minho tried to scan the vessel with his sensors, but the readings made no sense. According to his instruments, the ship was simultaneously 1 kilometer long and infinite in size. It existed in the present moment and also in all possible futures. It was there, and also not there, and also everywhere at once. A communication came through on frequencies that should not exist. "This is Admiral Yu Jin of the Terran Dimensional Fleet," said a calm human voice. "Please forgive our absence. We have been learning." Minho stared at his communication panel. The voice was definitely human, but something about it had changed. There was a depth to it, as if the speaker existed in more dimensions than the 3 everyone else lived in. "Admiral," Minho said carefully, This is Captain Minho of the survey vessel Brightwing. Where have you been? The entire galaxy has been looking for Earth. Earth is safe, Yujin replied. We discovered something wonderful and terrible. We needed time to understand it before we returned to normal space. More holes began opening across the system. Through each one came another impossible human ship, each one unique, each one bending reality in different ways. Some moved by folding space around themselves. Others seemed to step between dimensions like walking through doorways. One ship appeared to be traveling backwards through time, arriving before it had left. The human fleet that emerged bore no resemblance to the simple fusion-powered vessels that had represented humanity's best technology just 7 months ago. These new ships moved through space-time as easily as fish swimming through water. News of humanity's return spread across the galaxy within hours. Emergency sessions were called on every major world. The Galactic Council demanded immediate answers. Military fleets were mobilized, though nobody was sure whether they should prepare for rescue operations or defensive action. Dr. Yunji, speaking for what she called the Terran Science Collective, appeared via hologram at the Emergency Council session. But her image flickered and shifted, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making it difficult to look at directly. Honored delegates, she said, we apologize for our sudden departure. During our time away, we made contact with beings from higher dimensions. They taught us things about the nature of reality that we never imagined possible. High Speaker Velandris leaned forward in her chair. Dr. Yunji, what exactly happened to your people? Your technology appears to have advanced by thousands of years in just 7 months. Yunji smiled, and for a moment her image became solid and normal. Time works differently in folded space. For us, we spent decades learning from our new teachers. We discovered that reality is much more flexible than anyone believed. The laws of physics are more like suggestions that can be rewritten by those who understand how. The Korth delegate harmonics of truth vibrated with alarm. You speak of rewriting physical laws. This is dangerous beyond measure. There are reasons why reality has rules. We understand the dangers, Yunji replied. That is why we took time to learn properly before returning. We are not the same humans who disappeared 7 months ago. We have evolved. To demonstrate, she gestured with one hand. Instantly, a perfect rose appeared in the air above the council table, its petals made of crystallized starlight. The rose existed for exactly 10 seconds before dissolving back into nothingness, leaving behind only the faint scent of flowers. We can manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level, Yunji explained. We can step outside the normal flow of time. We can access infinite parallel dimensions. But most importantly, we have learned wisdom. Power without wisdom destroyed the beings who taught us. We will not make the same mistake. Elder Gastel of the Morden spoke slowly. What do you intend to do with these abilities? We intend to help, Yunji said simply. The galaxy faces many problems that conventional technology cannot solve. Wars that drag on for decades, diseases that cannot be cured, planets dying from environmental collapse. We can fix these things now. The council chamber fell silent. For 300 years, humanity had been the galaxy's youngest member species, always asking for help, always learning from older civilizations. Now they were offering to solve problems that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. Admiral Yujin's voice came through the communication system again. We know this is difficult to accept. We have changed dramatically in a short time. But we are still human at our core. We still value life, freedom, and the right of every species to choose its own path. We simply have better tools now to protect these values. Through the viewing ports of Harmony's Edge Station, Commander Teho watched as human ships began appearing throughout the system. Each vessel moved with impossible grace, bending space around them like dancers moving through water. The humans had returned, but they were no longer the species that had left. So Min stood beside him, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was seeing. They have become something beyond our understanding, she whispered. Jinwoo joined them at the viewing port. The old captain had seen many changes in his decades in space, but nothing had prepared him for this. The question, he said quietly, is whether they are still our friends." As if in answer to his words, Admiral Eugen's ship appeared directly outside their station, not approaching from a distance, but simply materializing there, as if it had always been present. "Captain Jinwoo," came Eugen's voice over their communication system. "We remember you. You helped evacuate the civilian population during the Kepler crisis 15 years ago. We have not forgotten our friends." The Admiral's ship began to glow with soft, warm light. Somehow, just being near it made everyone on the station feel safer and more peaceful. Whatever humanity had become, they still remembered kindness. But across the galaxy, other species began to worry. If humans could rewrite reality itself, what would stop them from rewriting everyone else along with it? The first test of humanity's new role in the galaxy came sooner than anyone expected. The frontier wars had been raging for 53 years between the Kethmar Empire and the Velthari Federation. What started as a border dispute over mining rights had grown into a galaxy-wide conflict that killed billions and showed no signs of ending. The Galactic Council had tried everything. Peace talks failed when negotiators were assassinated. Economic sanctions only made both sides more desperate. Military intervention by neutral species had been rejected by both the Kethmar and Velthari governments. The war had become a meat grinder. Both sides used increasingly horrible weapons against civilian targets. Entire planets had been sterilized. Refugee camps held millions of displaced beings. Children grew up knowing nothing but war and hatred. Then Colonel Jae-sung decided enough was enough. He did not travel to the Kethmar homeworld in a ship. He did not use any form of transportation that the galaxy's military experts would recognize. One moment he was aboard the human vessel Peaceful Harbor, orbiting a neutral star system. The next moment he was standing in the middle of the Kethmar High Command meeting room on their fortress world of Karthak. The Kethmar war leaders were gathered around their battle table, planning the next phase of their campaign against Velthari colonies. War Marshal Grektor was in the middle of explaining how they would break through enemy defenses when a human simply appeared among them. Jae-sung looked around the room calmly. He was a small man by Kethmar standards, barely reaching the shoulder of the smallest warrior present, but something about him made the huge alien soldiers step back in alarm. "The war ends now," he said in perfect Kethmar language. War Marshal Grektor was the first to recover from his shock. The Kethmar were a proud warrior species who had never backed down from any fight. He reached for his plasma rifle, a weapon powerful enough to cut through tank armor. Jae-sung looked at the War Marshal and gestured casually with one hand. The plasma rifle was gone. Not destroyed, not broken, not disabled. It had simply never existed. There was no mark on the War Marshal's armor where the weapon had been attached. No memory in the room's computer systems of the weapon ever being there. Reality had been quietly edited to remove it completely. The other Kethmar commanders reached for their own weapons. Jae-sung made another small gesture. Every weapon in the room vanished the same way. Sidearms, combat knives, even the ceremonial war axes that Kethmar officers carried as symbols of rank. All gone as if they had never been made. But Jae-sung was not finished. Through the viewports, the Kethmar could see their orbital defense platforms, massive weapons that could destroy entire fleets. With a third gesture, those vanished too. The planet's entire military defense network, built over centuries and representing the pinnacle of Kethmar engineering, simply ceased to exist. "Sit down," Jae-sung said quietly. The Kethmar sat. At exactly the same moment, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain So-young was delivering the same message to the Velthari High Council on their crystal homeworld. She had appeared in their council chamber just as suddenly, and with the same calm authority, she had made their weapons disappear with equal ease. Commander Dongmin stood before the Galactic Council itself, explaining what humanity was doing and why. For 53 years, this war has continued because both sides believed they could win through violence, he said to the stunned delegates. They were wrong. Violence has only created more violence. Today we are offering a different path. High Speaker Valandris found her voice first. You cannot simply make weapons disappear and expect that to solve anything. The Kethmar and my people will build new weapons. No, Dongmin said simply. They will not. He explained that humanity had placed what they called reality anchors around both star systems. These devices prevented any military technology above a certain level from existing in the area. Ships could still fly and people could still defend themselves with basic tools, but weapons of mass destruction would simply fail to work. "You are forcing peace on us," accused Elder Gostel. "We are removing the tools of war," Dongmin corrected. "Peace is still your choice to make, but you can no longer choose mass destruction." Dr. Mi-young appeared as a hologram to explain the technical details. Her image was stable now, no longer flickering between dimensions as it had during her first appearance. "We have been monitoring galactic communications across all possible timelines," she said. "We know what has happened in your past. We know what will happen in your future if current patterns continue. The frontier wars, if allowed to continue, will eventually involve 17 different species and result in the extinction of 3 civilizations." The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates accused humanity of arrogance. Others demanded to know what gave humans the right to interfere in the affairs of other species. A few quietly asked if humanity could help solve other long-standing problems. Through it all, Dongmin remained calm. "We do not claim the right to rule anyone," he said. "We claim the responsibility to prevent unnecessary suffering. If you wish to fight wars, fight them with words and diplomacy. If you wish to compete, compete in trade and science and art. But we will not allow the use of weapons that can destroy entire worlds." The demonstration that followed changed everything. Over the next few days, humanity revealed the true extent of their new abilities. They moved entire fleets across the galaxy in minutes, using fold space tunnels that made conventional hyperspace travel look like walking. They terraformed barren worlds in hours, creating perfect environments for refugee resettlement. They healed diseases that had plagued certain species for millennia, using medical knowledge gained from their dimensional teachers. Most impressive of all, they shared their knowledge freely. Human scientists worked with Velthari researchers to develop new technologies. Human artists collaborated with Kethmar warriors to turn their combat skills into beautiful performance. Human philosophers discussed ethics and meaning with the ancient Morden elders, but humanity kept the most dangerous technologies for themselves. The ability to manipulate reality directly, to edit the fabric of space-time, to access alternate dimensions, these powers remained strictly human. The reality anchors ensured that other species could not develop similar abilities without human approval. "Think of us as gardeners," Admiral Yu Jin explained during a public broadcast that reached every inhabited world in the galaxy. "We want every species to grow and flourish according to their own nature, but we will remove the weeds that threaten to choke out life." Within 6 months, the frontier wars were over, not because anyone surrendered, but because continuing to fight became impossible. The Kethmar discovered that their warrior culture could find new expression in competitive sports and protective services. The Velthari found that their logical minds were better suited to scientific research than military strategy. Refugee camps became thriving colonies as humans helped resettle displaced populations on newly terraformed worlds. Trade flourished as old enemies found they had much to offer each other, when not focused on mutual destruction. But not everyone was happy with humanity's new role. In the shadows of the galaxy, resentful voices began to whisper about human arrogance and the need to restore the natural order. Some species had grown powerful through war and conflict. Others had profited from selling weapons to both sides of various conflicts. These groups began to meet in secret, sharing their anger and planning their response. They called themselves the Restoration Coalition, and they believed that humanity had upset the natural balance of the galaxy. They were wrong about many things, but they were right about one: the old galaxy was gone forever. The question was whether they would accept the new one, or try to destroy it. And unknown to anyone, including humanity, they were not the only ones who had learned new and dangerous secrets during the 7 months when the galaxy had gone quiet. The attack came without warning, striking at humanity's most protected research facility. Dr. Wansik was conducting experiments on dimensional fold mechanics aboard Research Station Zerion 7, which orbited a neutron star deep in human space. The station existed partially outside normal space-time, protected by 7 layers of reality barriers that should have made it completely safe from any conventional attack. The research was critical. Wansik and his team were working to understand exactly how their dimensional teachers had given humanity such incredible powers. They wanted to make sure the abilities could be used safely and perhaps find ways to share some benefits with other species without the dangerous side effects. The station's defenses were more than just shields and armor. Reality anchors prevented hostile technology from functioning nearby. Temporal barriers made the station exist in several different time streams simultaneously. Dimensional locks meant that nothing could reach the station without first traveling through folded space that only humans understood. Yet somehow, the attack succeeded. The explosion came from inside the station itself, not from bombs or missiles, but from weapons that operated on principles even the enhanced humans did not fully understand. The weapons did not just destroy, they prevented things from ever having existed in the first place. 37 human researchers died instantly, their existence erased so completely that only their colleagues remembered they had ever lived. Critical data about dimensional mechanics was wiped from reality itself, leaving gaps in human knowledge that could never be recovered. But worst of all, the attack proved that humanity's godlike powers had limits. Commander Boram arrived at the destroyed station 6 hours later, leading a team of human investigators. What she found shocked her to the core. The station still existed, but huge sections of it had been edited out of reality. Where laboratories had been, there was now empty space that had always been empty space. Carved into the quantum substrate of space itself, written in letters made of crystallized time, was a message. Your exile made you powerful. It also made you forget that you are not the only species capable of evolution. The message was signed with the mark of the Zephyrian Consortium, the ancient trading houses that had controlled galactic commerce for thousands of years. But Boram's analysis revealed something terrifying. The weapons used in the attack operated on reality negation principles that should not exist. They were more advanced than anything humanity had learned from their dimensional teachers. Captain Heiwan brought the evidence to Admiral Yu Jin aboard the flagship Eternal Harmony. The Admiral studied the data with growing concern. The weapons technology was not just advanced, it was familiar. The signature patterns matched theoretical designs that humanity had rejected during their time in fold space, because they were too dangerous. Someone else made contact with the entities, Yu Jin realized, and they learned things we chose not to learn. The investigation that followed revealed the disturbing truth. During the 7 months when humanity had disappeared from normal space, 3 other species had also vanished from galactic records. The ancient Nixthari, masters of dark energy manipulation, the mysterious void singers who could control gravitational fields with their voices, and a species known only as the architects, whose technology was so advanced that their ruins were studied but never understood. The galactic community had assumed these were separate incidents, perhaps natural extinctions or voluntary exile to distant galaxies. The truth was far worse. All 4 species had been contacted by the same extra-dimensional entities during the same time period. But unlike humanity, which had approached the entities as students seeking knowledge and wisdom, the other 3 species had made different choices. They had embraced the darker aspects of dimensional manipulation, learning to weaponize entropy itself, to create zones where the laws of physics simply did not apply, and to erase things from existence so completely that reality forgot they had ever been. The Nixthari had become beings of living darkness, able to consume light and energy and leave behind only void. The void singers had learned to sing reality into new shapes, bending space-time with harmonies that drove listeners insane. The architects had gained the ability to build structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating mazes that trapped entire civilizations in loops of time, and all 3 had allied themselves with the Zephyrian Consortium and other species that resented humanity's new role as galactic guardians. The evidence came from an unexpected source. Su Jin, a human who had refused the dimensional transformation, had been working as a liaison between baseline humanity and their evolved counterparts. Her investigation into black market weapons dealers led to the discovery that reality negation devices were being sold to resistance groups across the galaxy. The weapons are not just advanced, she reported to the human leadership. They are specifically designed to counter our abilities. Someone has been studying us, learning our weaknesses, and developing tools to exploit them. The first major battle of the Shadow War took place near the abandoned Kethmar fortress, world of Nexus Prime. A human patrol led by Captain Minho encountered a fleet of ships that should not exist. The vessels appeared to be made of crystallized void, their hulls absorbing light and energy without reflecting anything back. When Minho tried to use standard human abilities to stop the attacking ships, nothing happened. The enemy vessels existed in a state of reality negation that made them immune to dimensional manipulation. Their weapons fired beams of concentrated entropy that could age targets to dust in seconds or erase them from existence entirely. The battle lasted only minutes, but it changed everything. For the first time since their return, humans had encountered an enemy they could not easily defeat. Minho's ship was forced to retreat, its hull scarred by weapons that operated on principles beyond human understanding. The news spread quickly through both human space and the underground resistance networks. Humanity was not invincible. They could be fought, they could be hurt, and they could be killed by enemies who understood the right techniques. Resistance cells that had been hiding in the shadows began to act more boldly. Attacks on human facilities increased, using weapons supplied by the transformed alien species. Trade routes were disrupted by pirates wielding reality-warping technology. Several human colonies reported strange incidents where parts of their settlements simply vanished without explanation. The Galactic Council found itself caught in the middle of a conflict it did not understand. Some species supported humanity's role as protectors, grateful for the peace and prosperity that human intervention had brought. Others secretly sympathized with the resistance, feeling that humanity had grown too powerful and needed to be brought down. High Speaker Vel Andrus called for emergency sessions to address the growing crisis. "We stand at a crossroads," she told the assembled delegates. "We can support the humans who have brought peace to our galaxy, or we can allow chaos to return in the name of independence. But we cannot remain neutral while reality itself becomes a battlefield." Elder Gastel spoke for many when he said, "The humans mean well, but they have upset the natural order. Perhaps some conflict is necessary to restore balance." The Korth delegate harmonics of truth vibrated with fear. "You do not understand what is happening. This is not about balance or natural order. The weapons being used in these attacks do not just destroy. They unweave the fabric of existence itself. If this conflict continues, it could damage reality beyond repair." As if to prove the Korth delegate's point, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Strange phenomena were appearing wherever the new weapons had been used. Areas of space where time moved backwards, planets where gravity worked in reverse, star systems where the laws of physics changed from day to day. The entities from higher dimensions were feeding on the chaos, using each reality-warping attack to push further into normal space. What had started as a resistance movement against human authority was becoming something much more dangerous, a threat to the existence of the universe itself. Captain Dong Min, studying the patterns of attacks and anomalies, made a chilling discovery. "The resistance is not trying to defeat us," he reported to Admiral Yu Jin. "They are trying to weaken reality enough to let something else in. We are not fighting rebels. We are fighting cultists who want to break down the barriers between dimensions." The galaxy was about to learn that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. The final battle for reality itself began in 17 different dimensions at the same time. Admiral Yu Jin stood on the bridge of the human flagship Eternal Harmony, watching as space-time cracked like broken glass around them. The enemy fleet had arrived through tiers in reality, bringing with them the 3 transformed alien species and their galactic allies. The Nixthari ships looked like moving shadows, their hulls absorbing all light and energy. The Void Singers traveled in vessels that sang reality into new shapes as they moved, leaving trails of twisted space-time behind them. The Architect ships existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, phasing in and out of normal space in patterns that hurt to look at directly. But the true enemy was not any of these species. Through the cracks in reality, something else was pushing through. The extra-dimensional entities that had taught all 4 species their powers were finally entering normal space, drawn by the chaos of the reality wars. Dr. Sung Ho's analysis from the human research ship Discovery revealed the horrible truth. "The entities are not from a higher dimension," he reported to the fleet command. "They are from a lower one, a realm where existence itself is breaking down. They have been feeding on the energy released every time we manipulate reality. Every use of dimensional manipulation, every rewriting of physical laws, Every reality-warping weapon created fractures that the entities could exploit. They were not teachers offering knowledge. They were parasites seeking to escape their dying realm by consuming healthy universes. The battle raged across multiple timelines as both sides tried to rewrite history to ensure their victory. Major Taemin led human forces in the primary dimension, while Captain Eun-soo commanded tactical strikes across parallel realities. But every attack and counterattack only made the cracks in space-time worse. In Dimension 7, the human ship Bright Future faced a Nixthari vessel that had learned to weaponize darkness itself. The alien ship fired beams of concentrated entropy that aged everything they touched. Stars flickered and died as the weapon passed through them, leaving behind only cold emptiness. In Dimension 12, Commander So Young fought void singers whose harmonies could reshape matter at the molecular level. Their songs turned asteroids into living creatures and transformed space dust into acid rain that ate through ship hulls like paper. In Dimension 15, Captain Hyojung battled architect constructs that existed as living mazes, trapping enemy ships in loops of twisted space where every corridor led back to the beginning. But the turning point came from the most unexpected source. Private Jiho was a baseline human who had refused the dimensional transformation. He served aboard the research vessel Peaceful Harbor as a data analyst, working with numbers and communications rather than reality-bending technology. His job was to monitor the quantum static that filled space during reality wars, looking for patterns that might reveal enemy positions. Instead, he discovered something that all the enhanced humans had missed. The entities were not randomly entering normal space. They were following specific patterns, using the chaos of the reality battles to create stable pathways between dimensions. Each time humans or their enemies used their powers, they were unknowingly building a bridge that the entities could use to invade the universe permanently. The wars are not about winning or losing, Jiho reported to Dr. Youngmi, the chief scientist aboard his ship. They are about opening doors. The entities want us to keep fighting because every battle makes it easier for them to get through. Youngmi immediately understood the implications. She contacted Admiral Yujin with an emergency priority message. Admiral, we need to stop fighting immediately. Every time we use our dimensional abilities, we are helping the entities break into our universe. But stopping the battle was easier said than done. The transformed alien species believed they were fighting for their freedom from human dominance. The resistance groups thought they were saving the galaxy from human tyranny. None of them realized they were being manipulated by entities that wanted to consume all of existence. The solution came from an unlikely alliance. Hyojung, a former resistance leader who had started to suspect the truth about the entities, contacted Yujin directly. Admiral, I believe we have been used. My people and yours are both pawns in a larger game. We need to work together to stop this. What followed was the most difficult decision in human history. To seal the dimensional rifts and prevent the entities from fully entering normal space, humanity would have to voluntarily give up most of their godlike powers. The abilities that had made them the galaxy's protectors would have to be sacrificed to protect reality itself. Dr. Wonsik, working with both human and alien scientists, developed a plan. They would use the reality anchors not to prevent other species from accessing dimensional technology, but to limit how much power any species could safely use. The anchors would create stable zones where reality remained constant, preventing the kind of large-scale manipulation that created dimensional rifts. The final phase of the battle was not fought with weapons or reality-warping technology. Instead, teams of humans and reformed resistance members worked together to place modified reality anchors throughout the galaxy. Each anchor required someone to sacrifice their dimensional abilities permanently, binding their life force to the device to keep it stable. Thousands of humans volunteered, including Admiral Yujin himself. As each anchor activated, the cracks in reality began to heal. The entities, finding their pathways closing, retreated back to their dying dimension, though their influence could still be felt in the darker corners of space. The war ended not with humanity's victory, but with their choice to become something different. They retained enough dimensional ability to protect the galaxy from existential threats, but gave up the power to remake reality at will. The other transformed species made similar sacrifices, helping to seal the rifts they had helped create. In the aftermath, Captain Wu Jin helped establish the new Galactic Accords. a framework where humanity would serve as guardians of dimensional stability, while other species governed themselves according to their own nature and culture. The reality anchors ensured that no species could gain enough power to threaten the fabric of existence again. The galaxy learned that true strength was not the ability to reshape reality, but the wisdom to know when not to use that power. Wars still happened, but they were fought with conventional weapons and resolved through diplomacy, rather than reality manipulation. Trade flourished as species discovered they had much to offer each other without the threat of dimensional warfare. Art and science advanced as beings explored new possibilities within the stable framework provided by the anchors. And in the quiet spaces between stars, humanity continued their watch. They were no longer the chaotic species that had once filled the communication networks with constant chatter. They were not the godlike beings who had briefly held the power to rewrite existence itself. Instead, they had become something more important. The silent guardians who ensured that when darkness fell across the galaxy, there would always be light on the other side. They had learned that the greatest power was not the ability to change everything, but the responsibility to protect what mattered most.